Let me ask you something right now, and I need you to be honest with yourself. When was the last time someone walked all over you and you said nothing? When was the last time you swallowed your feelings, smiled anyway, and went home and cried alone? When was the last time you gave everything you had to someone who gave you nothing back and you still stayed, still waited, still hoped? If that hit close, don't look away, because this video is for you. This is the conversation nobody around you has the courage to start, so I'm going to start it. We live in a world that trained women from birth to be agreeable, to be gentle, to be patient, to be understanding, always. And I'm not here to tell you that being gentle is a weakness, because it's not. But there is a version of softness that is costing you your life. There is a version of sweetness that has become a cage, and you decorated the bar so beautifully that you forgot it was a cage. That's what we're talking about today. Not the strength of softness, but the trap of it. The version that keeps you small, keeps you silent, keeps you waiting for permission to live your own life. And here's the first thing you need to understand. Being soft is not the same as being kind. Let that sit. Kindness comes from a place of fullness. You give because you want to, because it lights you up, because it's genuinely who you are. But softness, the kind I'm talking about, comes from fear. Fear of rejection, fear of conflict, fear that if you say no, if you hold a boundary, if you show your real thoughts, people will leave. And so you bend. You bend and you bend and you bend until you don't even remember what you looked like standing straight. You've been managing everyone else's comfort at the expense of your own dignity, and you called it being a good person. But let me tell you what it actually is. It's self-abandonment dressed up as virtue. Think about the women you admire most, not just the ones you like, the ones you genuinely respect, the ones whose presence makes a room shift, the ones you'd call if your life fell apart. Are they the women who agree with everything, the ones who never speak up, the ones who fold every time someone pushes? No, they are the women who know what they think, who say it clearly, who hold their ground not with cruelty but with absolute calm certainty. That kind of woman doesn't make herself smaller so other people feel bigger. That kind of woman has decided, consciously, deliberately, that her peace, her truth, and her standards are not negotiable, and the world respects her for it. More importantly, she respects herself. So how did we get here? How does a woman become so soft that she loses herself entirely? It didn't happen overnight. I can promise you that. It started small. Maybe when you were little you learned that expressing anger got you punished, but expressing sadness got you comforted. So you stopped being angry. You buried it. Maybe you were told you were too much, too loud, too opinionated, too emotional. And so you started shrinking. You started editing yourself before anyone could reject the full version of you. Maybe you watched the women around you disappear into relationships and family and service, and you thought that was just what women did. And so slowly, quietly, you started disappearing too. And here's what makes it so dangerous. Society applauds it. You get praised for being easygoing. You get told you're so sweet, so understanding, so selfless. People love a woman who never says no because it's convenient for them. It's useful for them. A woman who has no demands, no boundaries, no voice. She's easy to be around because everything is always on your terms. But she's dying on the inside. She's lying awake at 3 in the morning wondering why she feels so empty when she's given so much of herself. And the answer is brutal and simple, because you cannot pour from an empty vessel and you cannot build a real life from a false version of yourself. Now I want to talk about relationships, because this is where the softness trap destroys women most completely. How many of you are in or have been in a relationship where you do everything and he does nothing, where you carry the emotional weight, the planning, the remembering, the apologizing, the fixing, all of it, while he shows up and accepts it like it was always owed to him? And every time you think about saying something, every time the frustration builds to the point where it has to come out, what do? You soften it. You preface it with, I don't want to start anything, but, or I know you're tired, but maybe if you could just, you package your legitimate needs inside so many apologies and qualifiers that by the time you're done speaking, you've already talked yourself out of being taken seriously. And then you wonder why nothing changes. Nothing changes because you never actually said what you meant. You said the polite, careful, don't rock the boat version of what you meant, and that version didn't have enough weight behind it to move anything. A strong woman doesn't do that. A strong woman says what she means, clearly, respectfully once. She doesn't beg. She doesn't repeat herself 300 times hoping this time it lands differently. She states her needs, she gives it space, and then she watches what the other person does with that information. Because here's the truth that will set you free. Actions are the only honest language. What someone does tells you exactly how much you mean to them. Not what they say, not what they promise, what they do. And a woman who knows her worth is always watching what people do, not just listening to what they say. But to get there, and to that place where you can be clear, direct, and unbothered, you have to first destroy a belief that has been running your life without your permission. And that belief is this: I am responsible for how other people feel. Read that again. I am responsible for how other people feel. This one belief has kept more women trapped than almost anything else I can name. Because if you believe you are responsible for everyone else's emotions, then every boundary you try to set becomes an act of violence in your own mind. Saying no feels like cruelty. Disagreeing feels like starting a war. Choosing yourself feels like betrayal. And so you never do any of it. You just keep absorbing, keep accommodating, keep contorting yourself to prevent other people from experiencing discomfort while you drown in your own. Here's the correction you need to internalize. You are responsible for your actions, your intentions, and your delivery. You are not responsible for how someone else chooses to receive it. If you tell a man calmly that his behavior is unacceptable and he explodes, that's his emotional immaturity. That is not your fault. If you say no to an extra workload and your colleague is annoyed, that is her problem. It is not a reason for you to say yes. Other people's discomfort is not a stop sign for your life. It never was. You just believed it was, and that belief has been running you into the ground. Now let's talk about the thing nobody wants to say out loud. Some women have confused suffering with strength. Somewhere along the way, enduring became a badge of honor. Staying when you should leave became loyalty. Sacrificing your own dreams for someone else's became love. Silence became peace. But none of that is strength. None of that is love. None of that is peace. That is just pain with a prettier name. Real strength is not how much you can absorb. Real strength is knowing when to walk away. Real love is mutual. It flows both ways, or it's not love at all. Real peace is not the absence of conflict. Real peace is the complete alignment between what you feel, what you say, and what you do. And that kind of peace requires you to stop being soft. I want you to think about your standards for a moment. Not the ones you tell people you have, your actual, real, lived standards. The things you actually tolerate, the behaviors you repeatedly accept, the lines that keep getting crossed but you redraw instead of walk away from. Because your real standards are not what you say. Your real standards are what you allow. And if you allow someone to show up late every time, to break promises, to speak to you dismissively, to treat your time like it doesn't matter, then that is your actual standard, regardless of what you believe about yourself. And that's a hard thing to hear. But it's one of the most important things I'll say in this entire video. You have to take responsibility for what you allow, because nothing in your life changes until you decide that certain things are simply no longer options. And here's where I need to address the women who say, but I've tried setting boundaries. It doesn't work. People just get angry. I hear you. And I want to be honest with you. Yes, sometimes they do get angry. Sometimes when you finally start holding your ground, the people who benefited from your softness will not celebrate your growth. They will call you cold. They will call you difficult. They will tell you that you've changed as if that's an accusation. But here's what I need you to understand. The anger of someone who can no longer take advantage of you is not evidence that you're wrong. It is evidence that you're right. It means the dynamic has shifted. It means you stopped being easy to exploit. It means the boundary is actually working. The discomfort you feel when someone reacts badly to your boundary is just part of the process. It is not a sign to retreat. It is a sign to hold steady. Because here's what happens after the initial resistance. Oh, people adjust or they leave. And both outcomes tell you exactly what you needed to know. The ones who adjust, who respect the new version of you, who show up differently, those are your people. Those are the ones worth keeping. And the ones who leave because you stop making yourself small for them, let them go. Let them go with zero drama and zero apology. Their departure is not your loss. It is your upgrade. You have been confusing people who need you to be small for people who love you. Those are not the same thing. They are not even close to the same thing. Now, I want to take a moment and talk about work because the softness trap doesn't just live in your personal life. It's absolutely destroying women in the professional world too. How many of you have done work that got credited to someone else and said nothing? How many of you have been interrupted in meetings and let it go? How many of you have been passed over for promotions that went to someone less qualified but more confident, and you told yourself that hard work eventually gets noticed? And how many times did you keep waiting? The truth is that in professional spaces, the soft woman becomes the most reliable workhorse in the office. The one everyone dumps extra tasks on because she never says no. The one who stays late because she doesn't want to seem uncommitted. The one who apologizes before she even opens her mouth to share an idea. And the men in that same room, and I say this with no hostility, just pure observation, the men with half your talent are getting twice your recognition because they take up space unapologetically. They speak without qualifying everything. They ask for raises without performing humility first. They take credit without excessive deflection, not because they're more talented, but because they were never taught that shrinking themselves was a survival strategy. You were, and it's costing you your career, your confidence, and your money. You have to start taking up space in rooms, in conversations, in salary negotiations, in credit taking, in idea sharing. You stop saying, I just wanted to mention, and you start saying, here is my proposal. You stop saying, I don't know if this is right, but, and you start saying, I believe this is the direction we should take. You stop saying, could I maybe possibly be considered for, and you start saying, I am ready for this, and here is why. The language you use tells the room what you think of yourself before anyone has a chance to decide for themselves. And when you speak from a place of quiet certainty rather than constant apology, the room hears you differently. The room treats you differently. And I want to talk about something deep now, the fear of being disliked, because this is the root. This is what feeds the softness more than anything else. The terror of not being liked, of being seen as too much, too cold, too direct, too demanding. The desperate need for universal approval that makes a woman agree when she disagrees, laugh when she doesn't find it funny, stay when she should leave, and give when she has nothing left. The fear of being disliked is one of the most powerful invisible forces operating in a woman's life, and most women have never even named it or looked it in the face. So I want you to look at it right now. What would actually happen if someone didn't like you? Not your worst fear, the actual consequence. Would your life collapse? Would you lose everything important? In almost every case, the answer is no. The person not liking you is uncomfortable, but it is not catastrophic. And the life you are living trying to be universally liked, that version of you that nobody can actually reach because she's too buried under performance, that life is the actual loss. You are trading your authenticity, your power, and your peace for the approval of people who, frankly, you would not look up to if you saw them clearly. Not everyone deserves your softness. Not everyone deserves access to your warmth, your energy, your time, and your emotional depth. These things are valuable. These things are finite. And you get to decide who receives them. That is not cruelty. That is wisdom. A woman who freely gives her heart to every person who passes by is not loving more. She is protecting herself less. Selectivity is not coldness. Discernment is not distance. Being intentional about who gets your full presence is one of the most self-loving things you can do. Now, let's talk about what building this strength actually looks like in practice, because it's not about becoming hard. I want to be very clear about that. The goal is not to become cold, closed off, aggressive, or unkind. The goal is to become grounded. There is a profound difference between a woman who is hard and a woman who is grounded. A hard woman has built walls because she's afraid. A grounded woman has roots because she knows who she is. A hard woman pushes people away with aggression. A grounded woman holds her space with calm. You want to be the second one. You want to be the woman who can sit in an uncomfortable conversation without running from it, who can hear criticism without crumbling, who can love fully without losing herself, who can say no without dissolving in guilt, who can be alone without being desperate for anyone to fill the silence. That woman is built through practice. She is built through hundreds of small moments where you choose yourself, where you say the true thing instead of the comfortable thing, where you hold the boundary even though your hands are shaking, where you walk away from what doesn't serve you even when part of you wants to stay. Every single time you choose yourself in a small moment, you are building the version of yourself that chooses herself in the big moments too. You are rewiring the belief that your worth is contingent on other people's comfort. You are proving to yourself over and over that you can handle the discomfort of standing firm and that the world doesn't end when you do. Start with your voice. Start noticing when you censor yourself, when you have a thought and you edit it before it leaves your mouth, when you agree and you didn't mean to, when you laugh and nothing was funny, when you say, I'm fine and you're not fine. Start catching those moments. Not to be impulsive, but to start asking yourself, what would I actually say if I weren't afraid right now? You don't have to say it yet, but start hearing it. Start getting familiar with the real version of what you think, what you need, what you feel, because that version of you, the uncensored, unfiltered, real you, that is the woman who has power. That is the woman who commands respect. That is the woman who wakes up in the morning and recognizes herself in the mirror. Then start with the smallest boundaries. Not the hardest conversation first, just the next small thing. The invitation you actually don't want to accept. The favor that's going to drain you. The person who always texts late expecting immediate responses. The family member who makes comments about your life that are not their business. Start there. Practice the language. That doesn't work for me. I'm not available for that. I'm not going to discuss that. Short, clear, no extensive justification. Because here's what most women don't know. You do not owe anyone an explanation for your boundaries. An explanation is not required for a boundary to be valid. You don't have to build a legal case for your own no. No is a complete sentence. You can choose to explain if you want to, but you are not required to. And as you do this, as you start showing up more honestly, holding firmer ground, taking up more space, you will notice something interesting. The quality of your relationships will change. Some will get better, deeper, more real, more mutual, because the people who actually love you will rise to meet the real you. And some will fall away because they were only there for the version of you that was easy. And both of these things are good outcomes. You don't need a crowd. You need a few people who genuinely see you and choose you, not the performance of you, not the convenient version of you, but you. And you cannot have those relationships while you're hiding behind softness as a shield. I want to say something directly to the women watching this who are exhausted, and you know who you are. You've been the strong one for everyone else for so long that you've forgotten you're allowed to be cared for too. You've been the one who holds it together, who shows up, who solves the problems, who keeps the peace. And underneath all of that capability, you are tired, really tired, not just sleep tired, soul tired. The kind of tired that comes from giving without replenishment for so long that you're running on fumes and pride. I see you. And what I need you to hear is this. Your strength is not in how much you can carry. Your strength is in your willingness to finally put some of it down. You are allowed to need things. You are allowed to be vulnerable. You are allowed to say, I'm struggling and I need help and this is too much for me right now. That is not weakness. That is humanity. The woman who can be strong and soft at the same time, who can hold her ground and still let people in, who can have standards and still have warmth. That is the most powerful kind of woman there is. And that's who you're building toward. Not a woman who has turned off her feelings and closed her heart, but a woman who feels everything and still chooses wisely, who loves generously and still protects herself, who is warm to the right people and completely unaffected by the wrong ones. Because here's the final thing I want you to carry out of this video. The life you want is on the other side of the softness that has been holding you back. The relationship where you're truly valued is waiting for the version of you who won't accept anything less. The career success you deserve is waiting for the woman who asks for it without apologizing. The peace you're craving is waiting for you to stop managing everyone else's world and start actually living in your own. The real friendships, the deep love, the genuine respect, the abundance, all of it is waiting for you to become too grounded to settle, too self-aware to shrink, too rooted to be shaken. You were not put here to be convenient. You were not put here to manage other people's comfort at the cost of your own soul. You were not put here to make yourself small so that people who can't handle your full size feel more comfortable. You were put here to live, fully, honestly, powerfully. And that life begins the moment you decide, not tomorrow, not when things are easier, not when the timing is better, right now, in this moment, that you are done being soft where it costs you everything and you are ready to be the version of yourself that the best parts of your life have been waiting for. So stop waiting. Stop shrinking. Stop apologizing for existing fully. Stop making your truth smaller to fit someone else's comfort. Start standing up. Start speaking clearly. Start choosing yourself. Not occasionally, not when it's convenient, but every single day as a practice, as a commitment, as the most important promise you have ever made. The strongest, most magnetic, most respected women you've ever admired didn't get there by waiting for permission. They got there by deciding. So decide, right now. That starts today.